What is going on, everybody, and welcome to another weekly update. And in these videos, what I like to provide you is upcoming events, possible earnings, and stock picks for the upcoming week. Now, if that sounds like something you're interested in, consider subscribing, as I do also provide daily updates considering the current environment that we are in. Events are changing things on a daily basis, hourly basis. So it helps you prepare for each and every day. So let's go ahead and bring up our little list as far as upcoming earnings. There is still a lot of earnings going on. Nothing in particular catches my eye, though, so I don't typically list it. If it's normally a lot of the bigger companies have already reported earnings, and those are the ones I typically play. Some of these other mid cap, small cap stocks I don't typically play, so I don't list them here. Now, as far as events coming up this week, we got a lot of core CPI data coming out this week on Thursday. But even with that being said, I don't think that is really going to matter at this point right now. I think we are waiting for this FOMC meeting, which is on March 16th. So it is right around the corner. And also to include on events, we have to understand that we have Russia and Ukraine. We've had a lot of different things coming up on that front. But before I dive too much into that, I'll go over the watch list real quick. I'm watching Tesla, UPST, LRCX, and MU, Airbnb. These particular two ones, I do like them technical wise, but you have to understand that chips, you're going to have to be extremely careful with chips because of all the sanctions that are being put in place. Chips could take a pretty decent beating moving forward, but I will get into that when I get to those. So SPX in itself, technical wise, we were trying to break out. We tried so very hard on Thursday. Again, we got Russia-Ukraine news that essentially dropped us step back down into the trend. In my mind, we have to hold that 4,100 mark, and hopefully we can break the 4,400 mark is what we are looking at. I think if we can break that 4,400 mark, I think we're pretty solid to head back up. But I think we don't have a strong enough catalyst to do that. We don't also have a strong enough catalyst to make us sell off heavily. Again, unless something changes, whether, again, that's China or some other event that is unforeseen at this point. And ultimately understand that there's a lot of strength in the market. You're seeing very strong bounces, seeing very strong wicks. Buyers are trying to move in. But again, with the whole situation with the Russia and Ukraine, more sanctions keep getting piled on Russia. We have to understand that Putin didn't enter this war and think that none of this stuff was going to happen. Again, he's in it for the long haul, in my opinion. Being said, we're going to see some major impact on supply, but not until the Q1 earnings. We've still got another month of that before that ends. And then we have to understand that the rest of the earnings for this year are probably going to be actually pretty bad. People are going to have to actually start lowering expectations because of the fact that this was an unseen event. And I think a lot of big companies that did extremely well, that had even pushed for further guidance for upcoming earnings, are now going to be dramatically impacted because of the event with Russia and Ukraine. So being said, technical wise, those are the levels I'm watching at SPX. Bitcoin, it's been plummeting, obviously. The Fed has been talking a lot of negative about cryptocurrency. Powell was in front of the Senate this week, and all you kept hearing was Russia doing bad things and illegal things with crypto. And so it was getting a bad rap this week. But with a mass adoption, we still have to understand there's a lot of momentum that crypto has. So being said, I'm still watching that 32K mark as essentially being the base. If we break that, I would be a little more concerned. But at this point, I think we are pretty solid. I think we're just waiting for that catalyst. We're just waiting for a ceasefire. We are just waiting um, for the actual rate raises to come to play, and then this will start running. I think Bitcoin will run in parallel with the market, with the still worrisome of inflation until it gets under wraps. I don't think Bitcoin is going anywhere until that point. Even being considered, some people are playing gold because of the fact of worry of inflation and some kind of safe haven, but still, Bitcoin, I think, is taking over that massively, especially with a lot of newer investors. And so, being said, newer investors would rather invest in Bitcoin as opposed to actual physical gold. But so again, still very bullish on the market in general. Still very bullish on Bitcoin. Again, there is still tons of money in the system. It is going to take the Fed a long time to make any kind of action to be able to liquidate some of that money out of the market. Even though they've talked about it, it is way far than any quick movement at the given time. So being said, let's get into our first pick. We have Tesla, of course. Tesla has been extremely strong. It got some really good news on Friday about the factory and wanted to keep running, but it got essentially knocked back down on that 589 mark. I think given this is definitely could be a higher low as long as you can hold this. It's holding the 50 on the weekly. But this high range, this 886 has been a very solid resistance. And I think what's going to happen is we're going to attempt to try to retest that one last time. If we do not break that, I think we're going to sell back down. How far is that? We may maybe see 750 again. I don't really see us, unless there's a big catalyst to drive the whole market down. I don't see Tesla continuing this free fall down. It's already taken a massive hit, over 30%. I think this pickup right here was probably going to be the last time you might see it. Not saying it's never going to happen. Probably might be the last time you've seen it this year. But we'll have to see. There's still a lot of uncertainty in the markets. Could go back down and retest those lows. But we have to see. Again, there's a lot of what ifs in this current given situation. But if we do continue to sell, we do have support. We have that. We're going to have that 800 psychological level, and then we get the 790, and look at that 740 before we hit that 700. But that 700 has been a very solid support there. We also have the 20 EMA on the monthly sitting there. But even being said, we have a massive rip because of this monthly. So I can continue to see, as long as the market is okay, I continue to see this possibly even chop and continue forward and trying to go for that 1K leading into the next earnings. Yes, it's a couple weeks away, but we start talking about Tesla earnings again. But we have to also understand that Tesla likes to consolidate for long periods of time, and then has those a couple $100 rips going into earnings or around earnings. So that's what I'm kind of watching this week. Again, I want to watch the ones that have a cult-like following that rebound very quickly, and Tesla is one of them. Now, UPST is another one I really like. I really like to see this around 100. That 100 mark would be a good entry. It's taken a long time for it to sell off after earnings. It had a killer earnings. I had that quick rebound and then bottle rocket straight out. Looking again for that 100 this week. If it does hold that, I want to try to buy back into this. But the nice thing about the 100 mark is there's such strong support that if it does break that, and you can have a quick stop and know when to cut out. Otherwise, it's pretty trustworthy here as long as it will hold. So I'm really looking at that 100 mark on UPST this week. And again, I think it can play all the way back up to that 160 mark. Moving forward, might actually come down around the 100 mark and just kind of battle between the 120, the 100 and 120 for a while before continuing forward. Again, I think the biggest thing to keep in mind here is if there is a ceasefire, we are going to get a short squeeze like you have never seen before in this market. I think the market just is waiting for some kind of positivity, and this thing's going to start ripping, in my opinion. So we have to wait and see how that plays out. LRCX, I really like support here. It is holding the 520 mark. It needs to continue to hold this, or else it could be in for a bigger beating than it's already had. Again, chips with sanctions are going to suffer until something comes of that. You're going to see this continue to get crushed, possibly, but I like the support as long as it's going to hold that. I think we can get another pop and possibly retest of that 565 mark is kind of what I'm looking at. And again, I like strong supports because you have that stop right underneath it. If it does break, you can cut as quick as possible. That's what I'm looking at for LRCX. MU, the same situation. It's floating around the 200. It's a really good first attempt. I think MU could actually have a really nice pop, especially since it's had this massive sell-off. I think it could get a nice pop up to that 83 mark, essentially from sitting at the 80.61 mark. So I'm looking for that move come Monday, possibly short term, or possibly even longer, depends on what happens over the next couple of days. But if it can hold that and start popping back, would be great. Again, if it does break that, I think chips altogether would be a free fall. MU is normally, it can be a big mover. LRCX and ASML hold better. So if you feel like those are better options for you when playing chips, and if you're trying to play them alongside, I think those are the better way to go. AMD, MU, and NVIDIA seem to sell off a lot more quickly when the market turns. So just be mindful of that. And then I have Airbnb, which is another big one I really like. I like the support here. It's holding the 139 mark. As long as it continues to hold that, I can see us possibly retesting the 159 mark. Again, these lows are the ones we want to buy. And then when we revisit this 159, keep tight stops on those. If it does break, then you're really, that's the best, right? Like you caught the bottom. I think we're starting to kind of hit the bottom around these areas. And again, if you're looking more 5-10 years out, this is really what you want to be doing. Be buying now. Again, this is not financial advice, but you want to be buying now, averaging dollar cost averaging at this point, because eventually, like I said, we're going to get a short squeeze, and it's going to come quicker than you think it is, and it's going to be too late at that point. At least I think for this year. Again, it can always be new events that sink us again, or continue to make things worse. But again, we have to see how that plays out. But again, technical wise, I do really like Airbnb here. I like fundamental wise as well. But I think we could revisit that 160. So another big one I really want to watch coming into this week. But that is pretty much it. I don't want to make this video too long. Again, I try to keep the watch list small. I think it's at anything. As you can see, I have tons of tickers here. This is just a small list. I have other watch lists in here that have hundreds of tickers on them. You need to really refine the stuff that you're looking at in periods of time like this. Commodities have been really hot. It's not something I typically trade. I've been kind of looking at some stuff. I've been looking at wheat. I've been looking at petroleum. But I mean, ultimately, you don't want to be chasing, because all it's going to take is a ceasefire in those things, and your FOMO is going to get you wrecked. So you have to be careful on those things. If you haven't caught it already, you don't want to be chasing, especially at this point, because things can turn so quickly on those things. And when you got stuff like this that's hitting very strong supports, and buying these strong supports, and especially if you're an investor, these are good times to be buying. And then the turnaround, we're just waiting for the turnaround. Being patient is what matters. Having a bigger, wider scope in the broad scheme of things is going to help you in the long run, as opposing having a short-term aspect of what's going on. So with that being said, if you've made it this far, remember to hit the like button. Until next time, I'll see you guys later.